All right, so this interview is a bit of a different one. It's kind of tying up with an event that's taking place in the UK by Mike and Couch. It's called Besharam Aadmi, and it's a one-man
Yes.
play that's set to take place in the UK in April. And I'm very fascinated by this idea of one-man play. I mean, I'm sure, or one-person play rather, because we've had, I think, several concepts of that explored here in the UK. But having a South Asian, a notable actor like Parashar, who is joining me today, um, do this is something very, very different. So, Amol, firstly, warm welcome to you on Filme Shilmy, and thank you so much for joining. I know the
Thank
day
you.
has
Thank
been
you.
hectic, so
Yeah.
really appreciate you taking the time out.
No, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be doing this.
All right,
I'm
amazing.
very excited to come to London and perform this show.
For sure. I
Yeah.
mean, this is, I believe, your first time coming to London for a performance as such, right? In this thing.
Interestingly, my first trip ever outside of India was to the UK uh, for a play, which I was acting in, which was not a one-person play, which was like a multiple, it was like full team, but we didn't really perform in London. We were going to Manchester. So
Oh,
we did go via London, but there is a festival in Manchester called Contacting the World. There is a theater in Manchester, which is the Contact Theater, and they organize this, I think, or they used to. I don't know if it happens anymore, but because this was in 2010. And this used to happen every 2 years, and they used to have applications from all over the world, and they would select certain teams. And we were one of the 12 teams that were selected from all over the world, our team from Bombay. And that was my first trip outside of India.
oh
uh,
wow.
and we performed this play in Manchester. It was a beautiful festival, and yeah, so it is nice to go back to the UK, and it's nice to go back on stage for me because I used to do theater at that time. That's where I started as an actor, and then I moved to screen acting, and theater got left behind. So this is kind of like clawing my way back into my personal roots as well as just performing all over and places like London, Manchester, and all of that.
Yeah, and Leicester as well. Amazing. Well, look,
Yeah.
Besharam Aadmi, I love the title first of all because it seems very nonchalant. It's kind of embracing every aspect of what I believe will be about you as an individual
Mm,
through obviously
mm,
the theatrical sort of one person show. Um,
yeah. But I
I
don't,
would,
I mean, I
yeah,
just to clarify, I don't really play myself in the
right.
show. Of course, this is me talking in first person, but, and people figure this out as I tell the story because I am talking in first person. But as soon as I say, my wife and I live here and all of that, people figure out, "Ki, okay, this is a mole, but this is a fictional world, right?
Mm,
This is a world that we have created. So it's kind of, it's a very fine line. Uh, so there is of course a lot of me in terms of the ideas that we are talking about, the humor that we are trying to bring out, but it's said through a fictional marriage or a fictional, because I'm not married in real life,
mhm.
so people who know that, when, as soon as I'm talking about my wife, okay, this is a story that has been constructed for a certain purpose. So it is also fresh, I think, in that sense. A lot of people ask me, because when stand-up people perform, they speak in first person. They might also be making up stories, but they never confess to making those stories up because it sounds like, okay, this actually happened with this person. But in this case, we are not playing with that illusion. We are not, we are saying that this is a created world. This is an illusion that we are performing for you. But the characters, the story, the relationships are borrowed from personal experiences, of course.
Right, amazing. I think I
Yeah.
would love to know actually when you and God of from Mike and Couch sort of uh sort of decided to zero in on this concept. I think what was
Yeah.
besides obviously because Mike and Couch is based in the UK, besides that
Mm.
factor, what
Mm.
was it the sort of I guess the principles, the core principles behind it, the sort of eureka moment as it were for this?
I guess for me, I have been wanting to do a one-person show for a while, and for a couple of reasons. Because I started from stage, I started my acting journey on stage, and I used to do a lot of theater. In fact, when I moved to Bombay, also, I moved with the purpose of doing theater. I hadn't really imagined myself in films or TV at that time. Like my first day in Bombay, I will be honest, I didn't have those aspirations set in, but as I spent more time, I discovered these new mediums, and I was open to all of that. Of course, you start enjoying it after a while, and And theater in India is sadly, it's very difficult to make a living out of theater in India. There are a lot of actors in the US or in the UK who make a living out of live performance, which is not the case in India as much. So, and especially 15 years ago, right now the stand-up scene has exploded, and other performance scene has exploded. So it's changed. But in 2010, there was hardly any revenue in theater. So you had to do other things, which is when you would do a TV commercial, or you do a film, or you do a short film or stuff like that. And I kind of eventually moved in that direction, and then theater got left behind. So I really wanted to go back on stage. So I have been wanting to do this. I didn't know how to go back on stage, because it also requires a lot of time, a lot of coordination. You have to rehearse. You need a month or two. So for me, I think the most practical way to do this was just like not have any co-actors. I'll be honest. So I didn't have to coordinate dates with anyone else.
Right.
My own personal schedule is busy. So, I just wanted something I could do at my leisure, according around my schedule. I could do a show tonight, for example, if I'm suddenly free and I'm in Bareilly, and suddenly I feel like I want to do a show, I can put up a show because it just requires me and nobody else. So that was one reason to do a one man show. I'd been looking for a script for a while. In fact, one script I had really liked that I had read. One option was to write my own, which I was also trying. One option was to get it written from somebody else, like a writer friend. That also I was trying. So I was trying all these parallel things. I was also reading a lot of one person pieces. And there is, in fact, play written by a British woman, which I really liked,
Oh.
and it's called the play is called Age is a Feeling. I
Hmm.
don't know if you've heard of it. This is a person, Haley McGee. Uh, I hope I'm not mispronouncing her name. And I kind of wrote to them. I wrote to her agent, and I discussed taking the rights from them. Of course, I had to explain the economics of theater here in India to them, because we don't sell we don't sell 20 pound tickets and 50 pound tickets here in
Of
India.
course.
Right? The maximum probably people are willing to pay is $1,000, which is also a premium for live
Right.
performance. So
£10,
that back and forth
right?
was
Yeah.
happening. Yeah, so that's £10, and that's expensive. That's a premium play that you have to be famous for people to be buying ten
Right.
pound tickets here. So that was happening. In fact, I was working on that script for a while, because I had to. That was written in a woman's voice in the setting, and the culture was English. It was UK culture, so I had to make it Indian. I had to make it from a perspective of an Indian man and not a British woman. So that was a little bit of work that I was doing on the script, and I somehow just along the way bumped into Vijay, who is the writer director of Besharam Aadmi, and he had this story written for himself, because he's also an actor. He wrote it for himself, and somehow I don't know what idea came to him, that he thought of approaching me. Not that he knew that I was looking for something like this. And I ended up meeting him at that time, and I loved the story. I loved the idea, and I thought it was very fresh and very contemporary and very me in terms of like voice. In fact, I joke with him that if I don't tell people that you've written this piece, then most people are going to assume that this is written by me
Hmm.
only. Of course, then after we started working on it, there was a lot of co-collaboration also on the script, because we had to make it sound exactly like me. It was written like in his language, but so I had to make it mine. I had to add a few jokes. I wanted to make it a little funnier, because I believe that even if you have a good message, or an important theme, what is very important for a live performance to have is entertainment. People need to be entertained. I want the audience to walk out of the theater, and the first thing I want them to say is that I had fun. Right?
Hmm.
I don't want them to say, oh, he changed me as a person, and I learned so much. That's that's secondary. That's not
Yeah.
the first
The
review I
byproduct of
want
it.
of this show.
Yeah.
That should be a byproduct. That if you have something to say, if you have a message or whatever it is, which is bigger than the story, it should be subliminal. People should be entertained, because
Right.
they're going to be paying and sitting there for 75 minutes. They'll come from their homes, they will take a cab, they will or park their cars. They will pay for the tickets. They'll sit there in the dark for 75 minutes. What I owe to them is some fun and entertainment, and I want to make it worth their while. So that's something that we needed to work on together. Although the idea was great, but I wanted to make sure that it also had my energy and my personality in it, and a little more fun. So that's something we worked on together, and we started doing shows. Of course, with stand up, I think one advantage that people have is that you can try your jokes out 5 minutes, 5 minutes. You can build your piece brick by brick. But in a format like this, that's not the luxury we have. We believe in those 75 minutes in one go, and we just take the whole dish out to the audience and let them taste it, and then see whether it works. And thankfully, we've had a great run of shows so far. We've done 24 shows in the last few months across cities in India. I mean, it's been slow again because of my schedule. It's not like we are performing every weekend, like how stand-up shows are. But we've consistently built a certain audience. There's a certain curiosity also. People are also curious about what it is that is happening, right? Like you asked me, "Ki, what is it like? Is it a play? Is it stand-up? Is it poetry? Is it storytelling?" And I think somehow I've been enjoying that curiosity because when people come and watch, of course, then they post about it on Instagram and then they say, I really enjoyed it. It was so much fun and all of that. But of course, whoever is watching that content on Instagram doesn't get a sense of what happened inside that room. They want to know what happens inside that room, and I think that curiosity is also bringing people to the theater because there's some assurance from other audiences. No, I had fun. I went for the show. I had fun. It's a fun show. It's a great show. It's amazing. Whatever good things that people say, and it makes people come and watch it for themselves. Which is why so far deliberately I haven't even put out a clip, which is what mostly people do. They will take out the best clip or one of the best
Mm.
clips from the show and put it on YouTube or Instagram and get audiences from there. But it's just because I we were also not sure on what to call it. Should
Right.
we call it a play? Should we call it stand up? Everything felt like a misnomer. Everything felt like it's not accurately depicting what we're trying to do here. But it is a live performance. It is me on stage. If you know me, and most people who turn up probably already know me, know my work, and they have a sense of my sensibilities, my humor. That's what they come in expecting, and so far they've not gone back disappointed. Is what I can say.
No, it sounds really interesting, and I think it's a nice little subgenre. I think within the whole,
Yeah,
it's like a theater meets stand-up kind of fusion, right? And it's kind of
yeah.
finding its own path within that fusion.
Yeah, and I know, and I've been inspired, frankly, by like I was mentioning earlier. I see a lot of this format happening abroad. I see a lot of actors in the US do it, and in the UK. Like I started following because I was trying to go back on stage. And I was trying to see, how globally it's working. So you when you see something like Fleabag, which was a one
Oh yeah.
person production, or Andrew Scott, who was in Fleabag. He does a lot of these solo shows, I believe. I started checking them out online. So I was really inspired by people like Andrew Scott, who who
Mm.
are doing this, who have a film career, who have a television career, and but they still continue to do this. And you kind of borrow that courage also, that this is possible. One person can hold an audience for an hour or hour and a half. So, I mean, frankly, I don't know how to even reach out to him, but if he ever comes across this interview or anything, I would love for Andrew Scott to come and watch what we are doing.
Well, you
Of
never
course, the
know.
show is in Hindi, so he might be a little lost, but that those are the people I'm inspired by. I'm inspired by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I'm inspired by Andrew Scott on creating these one-person pieces.
No, but you can have subtitles nowadays in theater as well. Like I remember watching this production of, I think it was Umrao Jan, and it was very well
Okay.
done. And they actually had like screens and they had like
Okay.
English translations. as the play
Oh,
was
lovely.
happening. But I think it becomes very difficult. See, having subtitles on a play than, having it in a film,
Yeah,
very different, right? Because it's on the screen, so you don't have to, your eyes don't oscillate too much when you're watching it on the
correct,
screen. Whereas on the
correct,
play,
correct.
it's like you have to kind of have your fixed onto the stage, and if you look anywhere else, you might
Fixed.
miss.
Yeah, and I also, although this may be coming out of some kind of inexperience or fear, because I have never done this, never acted with subtitles on stage. But I also feel like, subtitles then will have a certain rhythm because they will just keep playing. And with live performance, what happens is sometimes just things happen that you haven't planned. And especially what has happened, I think, these days culturally is that because of people watching a lot of stand up, people have started participating in a performance, which is
Mm,
not something that used to happen 15 years ago. When we used to do a play, people used to sit quietly and just watch and leave. Right now, when I do Besharam Aadmi, of course, it is a little interactive because I'm speaking, I'm looking at them and talking to them. But I think in 2026, people are they want to participate, they want to answer your question, they
become
want to
more
like,
interactive.
or they
Yeah.
want to throw something at you, or they want to make a comment. So this and that you have to play along with that, so you don't know, you certain piece, a certain section may be 5 minutes in one show, but in another show it may be 8 minutes, and in some other show it may just be 3 minutes. So I don't know how the subtitles will therefore be able to adjust to things that are unplanned. Sometimes I just make up a line on stage because it just happens in that moment. So I think that's also a beauty of live performance, because there are some great jokes have come out of our shows, right,
Hmm.
which were not on paper, but as we started doing shows, as we started performing, some great punchlines came out of, because in one show it just happened. Like I just like
Yeah.
instinctively said something which was uproarious, and we added that. So we've also been kind of adding stuff or deleting stuff from the piece because it's a fluid organism. A film
Hmm.
is film. You watch the same film, whether you watch it in Delhi or Bombay or London or Leicester, it's just exactly the same film. But
Correct.
in live performance, maybe in productions like Umrao Jan, because there is so much planning and there are so many pieces that are working together, production design, actors. I think they are very set in their rhythms because their timings they have to like match with each other.
Hmm.
But I believe in the format where it's just me on stage, some shows are just faster than others, some shows are slower than others, and some shows are, more hectic, and some shows are calmer. Just I also don't know what's going to happen because it's also the energy of the audience, it's the energy of the room,
Yeah.
it's the size of the audience. If you're performing for 50 people in a small room, it's a different kind of energy. If you're performing for 500 people in a big hall, that's a slightly different kind of energy. So maybe there is a way to make subtitles work in this format, but we haven't figured a way around it yet.
No, but I think the fact that you're doing it, I think it will be very exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Besharam Aadmi pans out when it goes for its
Yeah, yeah,
theatre in April for sure in London
yeah,
and Leicester and I think other locations as well. So
yeah.
looking forward to that. But look, I think Amol, it's very interesting because I feel like this whole event is pretty much symbolic about you as a talent, really. Um, not to kind of paint you as this larger than life Lone Ranger or someone
Mm.
who kind of, like that song from Dhurandhar, was it Main To Karwa, like the whole,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm
It's like
not to kind of, yeah,
one man army.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want to make it sound that dramatic, but
Mm,
I think what I find very fascinating is that I think, you've in a way kind of been that really that quite independent in that sense as a talent,
mm,
right? Because
mm,
even some of the like sort of opportunities that have come about your way that have been somewhat backed by big studios or commercial
mm,
platforms, you know they've only come after you've had this whole sense of independence that's come out. Like for
mm,
example,
mm.
TVF, the Viral Fever, and Trip
Yeah,
was a big breakthrough
yeah,
for you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think the Viral Fever has managed to really corner this incredible zone of showing, you know, stories that are urban and rural at the same time, but then deeply engaging and quite
Yeah, yeah,
hopeful. There's a very sense of hope that they have
yeah, yeah,
in their journey.
yeah.
I think so, when we talk about independence, especially in today's day and age where especially now, Hindi cinema is going through this massive paradigm shift where, even independent studios or studios that were kind of, um, you know, even though they're big, but they're now kind of even becoming more financially more stronger. That's
Hmm.
what's happening now. So I just wanted to just
Hmm.
jog your mind a little bit about this whole idea
Hmm.
of being independent and really having to hustle through, I think, so far.
I mean, it is. See, I came to Bombay. I didn't know anyone in this city, like literally zero people. And I say that because no, I'm not that my story is harder or my struggle is the biggest. It's just a fact. Because when I meet other people also who come from outside of the film fraternity or outside of Bombay, mostly they at least have a friend who's working in Bombay, or a senior from college, or or a cousin, or somebody, some uncle, some you I studied in IIT. I studied in IIT Delhi. So at that time, when I was moving to Bombay, I had no idea that I will bump into another IIT, and there was no senior or junior. And if you study in DU, you will have some seniors who are already working in Bombay in some capacity. Right? But that's not the privilege I had. So when I came to Bombay, I literally knew like zero people. And the first person I met in Bombay is the first friend I made, and then maybe through that person I met two other people and three other people, and so everything is like really bootstrapped in startup terms. Even the network is bootstrapped in that sense, and I think there is a sense of independence is also, I would probably say, a part of my personality. I like it like that. I even just the idea of quitting my job, coming to Bombay, this was independent from what my parents wanted. They didn't want me to do this. Of course, they were worried. I wouldn't say they were unhappy, but they were pretty worried for a few years. I think it is only now that their worries are the chronic worries are gone. That what's going to happen to him? Is he going to ruin his life? Is he going to, be poor and just like die of hunger? But that hasn't happened, thankfully. But we didn't know. Like I also didn't know what was going to happen. And I also, along the way, realized that when you limit yourself to a certain group, or you when you limit yourself to a certain clique. I've never personally, even like before coming to Bombay, growing up also, I never had one clique and one group, in college or school. I was never that person. I had friends, but it was not like, oh, these four, I part of this group. Like, I was never that person. I think that's kind of what is translated professionally as well. That I get bored of the same people for a, for a long time. I need newer energy and newer people. And I also think that better work comes out of that. It makes the life a little uncertain, and it makes life a little, wobbly. But it leads to magic. Sometimes you just like end up meeting really brilliant people, and you end up. It could be the opposite as well, but the opportunity to really meet a new person and collaborate with them and see what comes out of that chemistry is something that I get really excited about. I also like my decisions to be my own. So even in terms of like, actors we have agents now and managers and all of that, and they all know whoever I've worked with so far, all the agencies. I don't listen to them. They know it. Like, it's not a good or a bad thing, but if they say this is nice, you do this. No, I will decide for myself. I know what is nice for me. I have a certain instinct. I've trained my instinct to
Mm,
know a script, or to know whether how good or bad this may turn out to be, or whether this is something I want to associate myself with. So I may make mistakes, but that will be my mistakes. So, and because they'll be my mistakes, I next time I will know better. If
mm,
I can't learn from other people's mistakes, otherwise it will just be about, oh, this happened because that person made a mistake, or it was their call, it was never my call. So I think it's just a selfish way of trying to grow as fast as possible. I know it sounds a little counterintuitive, because sometimes to grow, you're also advised to just like be in a group and grow together. That's also a fair advice probably. But I think so far I've managed decently. And now I also meet many people who are like, continue to be this way, and this is what makes you unique, and this is what makes you stand out. uh, because I also feel, as artists in general, not just actors, even writers, filmmakers, even painters, I think it is very important to be in touch with your own voice. Uh, Otherwise, what starts happening is, and which is something I've noticed with other actors or artists, is they all, I see people, they all start sounding like each other. Right? They all, they have the same sense of humor or the same jokes or the same way of speaking, the same kind of, uh,
Grammar. Mm.
grammar, just like even the cadence is the same. It's just like, if I close my eyes, I might not be able to tell one person from the other. So that is something I'm very conscious about. I I don't want to be in a, like, I want to be me. Like,
Mm.
I don't want to borrow so much from, or just like trying to fit in, uh, become somebody else, or try start copying other people. And I think that if you're able to preserve that, if you're able to preserve your own voice, then some nice things can happen. Again, it's probably not the easier path, but it feels to me more fruitful. Artistically, it feels to me most fruitful, because even like Besharam Aadmi, I didn't need to go to anybody to get their validation that, this script has come to me. Do you think it's good? I didn't have to ask anyone. I heard it. We sat in a cafe. I was meeting him for the second time in my life. He read it out to me in a cafe. I think halfway through it, I had made up my mind,
Mm.
because it's like, okay, this works for me. This works for me, and whatever needs to be fixed, we'll fix it together.
Mm.
Right. So it was, where does that instinct come from? It's come from 10, 15 years of just doing things on my own, making calls on my own, writing my own stuff or analyzing my own stuff, and getting reactions from people. And it's the mistakes have been mine, so I've learned from that. The instinct, I have used my own instinct, so it's kind of sharpens over time. So it's just that even my co-producer Vyom, he was not very sure. He heard it for the first time. He was like, I don't know, it doesn't sound fun. Like, it's very serious. And I said, hey, there is fun in this. I know there is. I know it's not sounding fun right now, but deep down there is fun, and we will make it fun. I know where we will take it, and it will be a fun show. It won't be a moral lesson or a, civics lesson. I know it sounds like that right now, but I could see what it could be.
Mm.
And I think that sense can only happen if you've trained your own instinct over a period of time, and you don't have to fall back on like four people around you and their opinions on it. And I
Right.
think that's very important as an artist. And somewhere, honestly, I mean, I don't mean to be bitchy, just like being objective about it. I think this is what Indian film industry is also suffering from right now. Because the studios, like you said, have consolidated. Now, because of the studio system, everything is nothing is instinctual anymore.
Mechanical. It's become
Yeah,
mechanical.
everything is very mechanical, very data driven. It's like, oh, five people will vote on this, and or we will give points, and then we will collate those points, and maybe there is some merit to it. I'm not saying it's entirely useless, but I don't think a good, genuine story or art can come from looking backwards. Right? You
Mm.
can't look at what has worked in the past and then. And I ask people in Bombay, like I meet a lot of people. I say, in the last 30 years, tell me two films that you loved, that you saw for the first time, and you said, whoa, what have I seen? And people say they have many kinds of answers. Some people say Dil Chahta Hai, some people say Munna Bhai, and some people say Rang De Basanti. And then my next follow-up question is, okay, now tell me, before Dil Chahta Hai, was there a Dil Chahta Hai? Was there anything like Dil Chahta Hai? Or before Rang De Basanti, was there anything like Rang De Basanti? Where we're like, oh, Rang De Basanti is like that. It's
Mm.
kind of taken from that. So you can't make, or I believe that you can't make a really good, impactful film or a piece of art by looking backwards, by looking at, oh, this has what has worked in the past.
Yeah.
So let's just take one piece from here and one piece from here and one piece from here, and this is the formula. Right? There has to be a certain kind of faith and instinct. Like, Farhan Akhtar was probably the only person in Bombay who believed that this is going to be a fun film. Right?
Mm.
Otherwise, people, I'm sure, there were people around him like, ah, who's gonna watch these three boys go to Goa and these silly jokes? Or what is happening? Or Rang De Basanti, oh, what are you doing? You're going back and forth. You're showing what is this? This is so confused. I'm sure there were counter voices,
Yeah,
logical
yeah,
counter voices,
definitely.
given the data. Or Munna Bhai, like, who's gonna watch a Gunda? Funny, is he a Gunda? Is he a doctor? What is? So I'm not saying they are wrong or they're right, but I do believe that a personal instinct or personal taste is a great thing to preserve for any artist. Like,
Right.
what do you stand for? What is your taste?
Hmm.
It's like being a chef. When Anuj cooks, this is the kind of flavor I get. Whether you like it or five people like it or 500 people like it,
That's
that's
subjective,
separate,
exactly.
right? But I can give you the same ingredient. But if Anuj cooks and I cook and everybody cooks and it's
Mm.
the same taste, then we are not really chefs, I think. Then we're just like cogs in a machine. Then
Yeah.
I'm not an actor. I'm just doing what you told me to do. A director is just like taking shots. So I think that's what's kind of happened. So there are benefits to the corporatization because many things are structured, many things are organized now, and probably many things are financially clearer than they used to be. But I also believe that there was some merit to personality driven films. There was the Ram Gopal Verma, there was the Subhash Ghai, they all had their own flavors. They brought, when you knew that this is going to be a uh, Karan Johar
Yeah.
film, or this is going to be a, yeah.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think also what is a bit of a concern as well, and I don't really want to delve into this too much because I do want to
Mm,
talk about your craft as
mm,
well. But I do
mm.
feel also like there's a lot of moral lessons kind of being sort of extrapolated, which is not a bad thing, but I think
Mm.
also I feel like people have just forgotten art for just being art sometimes, and I think like it's
Yeah.
important to kind of, you know, to kind of understand that certain things are good, certain things are bad, and yes, certain things do romanticize certain things to be called out as well. But I
Mm.
feel like everyone just wants to have an opinion first rather than actually try and absorb the art, and I think that for me is a bit of a concern, currently.
Yeah, maybe. Which is why I said, I think what happens is when you stumble upon a good message, sometimes you are, it's a trap that you can feel like, okay, that's all I need. I have a good message. Like even in case of Besharam Aadmi, like I said, when Vijay came to me with the story, he knew, he believed in it, and I knew that this is the good thing we are saying. We are talking about gender equality. We're talking about modern marriages. We're talking about division of chores, and these are conversations that are progressive. These are progressive ideas, but we can't be happy with just that. We can't just be happy about the fact, oh, we are saying something good and we are saying something nice and helpful to society. First thing, it has to be fun. First thing, it has to be entertaining. We are telling a story. We are storytellers, right? So if the story doesn't hold, if it doesn't engage, if it doesn't touch somebody's heart, if it doesn't make them feel anything, then there is no point in sermonizing, right? So because then I can just write an Instagram post, and that I can just write a lengthy post, and that's enough. I mean, if that's what we're doing. Why are we going to a theater performing? People are coming from their homes. There has to be some kind of connection. You have to viscerally make them feel it, not just like give gyan.
Exactly. And I think this is what I was going to say. Quality is more better than quantity, right? Like having a voice and voicing your stuff is not a bad thing. Of course, it's great, definitely welcome that for sure. But I feel like when there's too many voices, it's kind of overburdening with what's art about. But look, I think it's a very, very deep.
It's a separate conversation.
And completely, honestly, it's like a wormhole. It
Yeah.
literally just absorbs you.
Yeah.
There's a lot that can be said, but at the same time, it's
Mm.
also reassuring that at least there's good content that's kind of at least churning out, and there's different voices that are coming on the scene. So there's definitely a lot of positivity as well. So want to definitely focus on that aspect. Now, talking about you as an individual.
Mm.
Now, do forgive me, I've not seen Tripling. But from what I have understood a lot about the TVF content, like I mentioned earlier, it is about hope and aspiration. But at the same time, I think that's been a bit of a simmering sort of theme in all your other works, which I have seen.
Mm.
For example, even
Mm.
if we take a Bhagat Singh, for example, Shahid
Mm.
Bhagat Singh Ji,
Mm.
who you played in Sardar Udham, very beautifully
Mm.
that. Dolly,
Mm.
Dolly Kitty as well. In
Yes.
that, ambition was a very
Mm.
was
Hmm.
a subliminal theme. So it feels like, you've had this whole idea of ambition, but then, a bit of like darkness burdening you as well at the same time. There's like a very interesting fusion that I have
Yeah.
found. I mean, I don't know whether this is something that you subliminally look out for in scripts or whatever, but just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because I have sometimes we do things and we don't know deep down why we're doing things. Although tripling is the opposite of ambition in
Of
that sense. At
course.
least the character that I play, because he's the youngest kid who has good for nothing. At least that's what the family thinks because he doesn't have a job, has no money, and has no aspirations of getting a job or making money. Also, he's a free soul,
Mm,
and those kind of characters also, people love to watch them on screen because it's
yeah.
kind of like, you're vicariously living that life through that character because we all want to be that person. We all want to be, free of these social obligations, and why should I get a job, and why should I get married, and why do I need money? And that's the kind of person he is, and fun. So I think that's why Tripling's Chitvan, the DJ character that I played, and he's just a DJ. These days he's a DJ,
Mm,
not a very serious like I want to make a career out of it kind of person. So that he got a lot of love. Then of course, Shahid Bhagat Singh, is a legendary person in history, and I was in fact nervous about playing that character because playing fictional characters is safer in that sense. People only see what you give them, but here people are walking in or people are watching you with also a certain image that they've already built in their heads, whether it's through the books they've read, whether it's the cinema they've watched. So they've already seen other people's renditions of the same person. So one, of course, I can't copy that, and I don't want to copy that. And even Shoojit sir, he didn't want to, and that's the first thing he told me. He said, you've seen any of those films? I said, of course, I've seen so many films growing up. And he
mm,
said, forget about them. Just don't think about them because that was somebody else's interpretation. Basically, that person exists for us, if you really speak in true sense, in texts, right? There's hardly even any images. There are two images probably that exist uh, in the universe, which is of one of him in jail, which is also, we've used in the film. And it's very interesting. It's shown twice in the film. Once it is me, and the second time it is the actual picture of
mm,
Bhagat Singh. And it's just like it's just there. It's not even highlighted, and many people don't even catch that. And there is the image of that hat and the mustache that is mostly used.
mm,
So what do we know about this person? We know from texts. And what other people have done is interpreted a person through those texts. So this is how he used to write, this is what he used to do. So let's imagine the person. Right. So we will do it together independently of what other people have done in the past, which was, I think, a good thing he did the first meeting because that kind of took the load off uh, my chest because there have been legendary performances.
mm. Yeah, you
You
don't want
have
to
had Ajay
emulate them,
Devgan. You
basically.
don't want to emulate them. You're also and you don't want to fail at emulating them.
Mm,
An actor's fear is like I don't want to like not be good enough for this, and I don't want people to say he couldn't. He was
mm,
probably not the right choice. I think that's the basic insecurity any actor walks into any project is nobody should watch the project and say not fit for this part. Maybe somebody else should have done this part, whether it's even like not Bhagat Singh, any other part also. And with this kind of character specifically that but and I as I met him, as I spoke to him, and because this is a small section in the film, because the film is about Sardar Udham, he wanted to focus on the hopeful part. He wanted to focus on the fun part. These were 21-year-olds at the time we are watching them in the movie, and 21-year-olds are, yes, they can be passionate, they can be well read, and they can have great ideas for the world, but they're 21-year-olds. They are going to have a certain kind of energy, and that's what he wanted to focus on. And I think that's what eventually worked for many people. It was like, oh yeah, I mean, if you think about it, this is what he must have been like at 21, right?
right.
This is the kind of energy he may have had, this is the kind of body language he may have had. So I think that was I knew we were trying out something new. I was scared of being panned for it, but thankfully it worked. And it's also the his vision, his craft that I could bank on. Then last year I did Gram Chikitsale, where I played this, yes, idealist doctor who wants to change the world and is very honest and forthcoming. But I also played a bad guy. I did a show called Kul,
Mm.
which was on Hotstar last year, and there I got to, in a very liberating way, just be an asshole for the for the length of the show. And that can be fun because that's, we don't allow ourselves in real life to be that kind of person, but you can be in the safe space,
Yeah.
make believe world. You can be whoever you want to be. So I have tried, honestly, to do different kinds of things, but I think a theme can emerge because, uh, like I said, it is coming from a certain instinct or a certain kind of, pull from a certain story. Okay, this is something I'm looking for, or this is something, that'll be fun to do. And those things can have a subconscious connect, right?
Yeah.
Do you want, or I want to be associated with a story like this? Even for Gram Chikitsale, for example, I wanted to be associated with a story like that because I believe that also stories, like we discussed, they don't have to be
Mm.
moral lessons, but I also believe like we don't make stories about good people anymore.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
at the center of the thing, like, yes, there is gray in the world, and yes, there are flaws in people, but and we should make the Breaking Bads and the House of Cards and all of that. But now it seems to me, when I look around, that we don't have any aspirational characters anymore. We don't have any characters like, oh, I want to be like this, or I want my child to grow
It's
up
true.
to be like this.
Mm.
Right? Then we used to have that. I mean, we used to have both. We used to have great character, great protagonist, but also like really pure souls, which could be aspirational in a moral sense,
Yeah.
right? Where you could, it was kind of like there was some old school charm to this show and this character
Right.
and what he stood for. uh and yeah, and that's why I was drawn to that show. And yeah, and like right now, the show that I'm shooting for, I'm playing a gray character. He makes flawed choices. He may be a good person overall, but he does make mistakes. But I also wanted to do something like Dr. Prabhat, where
Mm.
he can be, whether and I don't even think it's unreal. Like some people say, there are no people like that. There are people like that. It's just that
Mm.
they don't make, they're not noisy. Good
Yeah.
people are somehow not noisy people. I think that's
That's
a
true.
opposite correlation.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just quietly do their jobs, right? They just quietly live their lives. They are nice, kind, honest. Uh,
And वो बचते नहीं है, actually जो लोग actually genuinely internalized balance होते हैं ना, वो बचते नहीं है, and
hmm.
you can feel that with the aura as well, and the characters as well that you mentioned as well, and I think
Yeah, yeah. So that just said, like, sometimes there is also this thing that system also, especially when you work in a system.
yeah.
In Gram Chikitsale, he's a doctor who's a part of the government system, and there are flaws in the system, and there is all kinds of things that he has to deal with. But he never loses ground, and I think that
Yeah.
that was something I was drawn to. It was inspiring in a way because I also believe that people have that in them. But if you
Mm.
keep telling people that doesn't work, and you better
Too
just like adjust,
idealistic
and
and stuff. Yeah.
I think then who is going to change the world? So I also wanted to appeal to the goodness in people, right? This character, I think, appeals to the goodness. I might meet so many doctors now who will probably feel like, yeah, it is okay to be good. I'm not an anomaly, because they're made fun of. Either you're shamed, or you're like, haha, you know you will die poor, you're not making any
Mm.
money.
Right.
But if they feel validated by a certain, even if it's a fictional character, but like,
Mm.
if Prabhat can be like this, I can know I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm not, there's nothing wrong with me, right? The system is wrong, but there's nothing wrong with me just because I'm honest. I mean, these
It's
are
actually so
these
true.
are yeah,
Yeah.
these values are, we were taught to us. Keep such bolo, be truthful, be honest, be dutiful to your job, and somehow we've made people believe that that's a lesser thing, that you're a lesser person for being a
Yeah.
good person. So
Honestly, so true. Just so true.
yeah. So I mean, maybe there are personal convictions involved once in a while when you, but you have to come across projects like that. As
Mm.
actors, we don't really make our own stories up. Yes, in case of live, I can, and which is why also I chose this, because I said, I will wait, and maybe good stories will come along and good characters will come along, but I don't want to keep waiting. I don't want to sit at home and be like, oh, when is a good script coming to me? uh, why can't I produce my own? Maybe I don't have the means to make a film right now. I don't have the money or the scale or even the network probably to make a film, but I definitely know how to make a play. Right? I
Mm.
definitely, and I have a sense of the storytelling and the beats, the flow of story, and where to dip and where to hold and where to add some humor. There is training along the way, so let me use that and let me create stories that I want to be a part of.
Yep.
And Besharam Aadmi is the first piece that I have done under that thing, and this is definitely not the last. Like, my plan is to hopefully keep
Yep.
making new pieces, new shows every year, every 2 years, and then just like, I also get to travel. I also
Yeah.
get to perform live. I also get to, when I do Besharam Aadmi or when I do anything live, you also, I think, the biggest advantage that I hadn't planned, but I found with doing this is actually getting to know the audience.
Mm.
What also happens, I think, in films is films are made in isolation of the audience. Like, you sit in a room, three writers sit in a room, and they ideate, and then they imagine that somebody sitting in Delhi is going to enjoy this film,
Mm.
right? And then the director, the producer, the actor, they all come in, and then everything is. But the audience will only see the final film, and then you find out, okay, oh, they didn't really
Mm.
find it funny. You thought it was going to be funny, they didn't find it funny, right? But in this, I know, and that is also something. Again, we don't have to go into detail of that, but that's a diagnostic problem I feel with the film industry right now. Is that the people who are making the films and people who are watching the films have become very different
Mm.
culturally.
There's a disconnect. Yeah.
There is a disconnect. You're just different people. I think
Mm.
it is okay to be different, but you have to know who those people are,
Right.
right? You have to know who you are making the film for, or who you are making the show for. If you don't know them, if you don't know their taste, if you don't know what they find funny, what they laugh at, what they cry for, what their aspirations are, then, and which is what TVF cracked, I think,
Yes.
when you speak about that. And that's what they cracked, because they were people who, and if you meet them today also, and that's a good quality, I think they're preserved. They don't sound like other people from
No, they
Bombay.
don't.
Like, they
Mm.
don't sound like all the other people I meet in certain events. They all kind of, like, 80% of the people just sound like each other. And then very few people preserve their own personality. I think TVF has managed to do that because they connect with the real people. They go out in the world, they meet people. And when I do this, when I perform live, when I do Besharam Aadmi, I get instant feedback. I instantly, in that actual real human moment, I connect with the audience. I get a sense of, okay, this, I thought this was going to be funny, but this, they didn't find it as funny. Or I thought this was just going to be like, okay, okay. And they're just like, they found it very funny. Or they come back after the show and they tell me, this part I really liked, that part I really connected with, really
Right.
like the mother's character. This is invaluable, I
Mm.
believe. And this is not something I had planned. But so next time, even if, let's say, I'm reading a script
Yeah.
for a film, there is, in my subconscious, there are going to be, I know who is this for. Are they really going to enjoy this? Are
Yeah.
they really, do they really want to watch this, or do they want to watch something else, right? Or is this really funny? We think this is funny, but is it? I mean, humor is also different for different people, like, in it is. So I think knowing the audience has been the biggest unplanned uh, advantage that I have had because of this Besharam Aadmi
Yeah.
experience. And going to different cities react differently. I'm sure London is going to react very differently, and they will enjoy it. I have confidence that they will enjoy it. In fact, they might enjoy it a little more
Yeah.
because because this is about a young married couple who lives on their own, away from their families, and they kind of like do the household chores, divide the chores between them, which happens in India, yes, also. But in India, there's a widespread culture of having house help, and there are other people doing these jobs for you. So
Mm,
you're not
mm.
having to probably deal with them yourself as much. But when I speak to my friends who live in London or US, or in Europe, my sister lives in Europe. It's not like one person is coming every day to wash the dishes
Right.
and wash the clothes. And so
Yeah.
so the idea of having to do your own things, and then how do you deal with that as a couple,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And that is, yes, of course, even in cities like Bangalore and Pune and Bombay and Delhi, people are connecting to it because it is, I mean, their stories also, young people, young couples. But I believe them, like people living in places like London, Leicester, living in a different culture, grew up in a different culture, now living in a different culture, and modern marriages, both people working, both people have a job. So
Yeah. So
how do
I
you
think it
manage
really captures the sort of cultural lifestyle that's here for sure. And I think people
that
will
is here, which
definitely
is this
connect with
is
it.
2026 marriages, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
are talking about 2026 marriages. This is not this story probably was not relevant in 2005,
Right,
and
exactly. It's not stuck with the old image that NRIs might have of Indian lifestyle back then, you know? And I think that's what it
not
is.
at
It's
all.
kind of like modern, contemporary, urbanized. But look, Amol, honestly, this interview could go on forever and eternity because there's so
Yeah, we
much.
should do a part two.
I think we definitely need to do a part
Yeah.
two for sure. And I think
Yeah.
hence why also your battery had just died, which
Yeah.
is why you're in a
Yes.
very different location, just for
Yeah.
consistency purposes, the
Yeah.
one let
Yeah.
us know. But thank you so much, Amol, for joining me on Filme
And
Shilmy. It's been
thank
such
you
a
for having
pleasure
me.
to have you. And listen, wishing you all the very best for Besharam Aadmi. I can't wait to check it out
Thank
when it
you.
comes to London.
Yes, yes, I'm very excited for you to watch it.
And hopefully many more amazing work to come your way for sure.
Yes. Thank you. Thank
Thank you
you.
so
See
much.
you. Thank you. Bye. Bye.